morning. Welcome, everyone. Morning. And thank you, Lakou Mizik, for welcoming us in. My name is Kristen, and I'm honored to serve as today's service coordinator. Before we start, I have a few brief announcements. If you are new to North Chapel, welcome. Please sign in at the guest book at the back of the sanctuary. And we're still taking COVID precautions, so the request to stay masked continues. Also, we are still humming our songs rather than singing inside. And we're still not able to gather downstairs for coffee hour, but we welcome you all to greet old friends and make new ones outside if it's not too hot after the service. I have a few brief announcements. Joanne is looking for volunteers to help with the reception for David Doolittle's memorial, so please check in with her if you're able. Peg Brightman is looking for volunteers for the Ukraine fundraiser. And I think we also have an announcement about book stock.
Starting on Wednesday the 15th, June 15th, at the Masonic Temple. So I have a sign-up sheet for anybody that would like to help, and they can be 2-hour shifts, and then also for selling on the green. And I have all those sign-up sheets here, and I'll have them at the end. So thank you.
And finally, if you haven't turned off your cell phones, please do, or put them on mute.
Good morning. Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. Today is Sunday, May the 22nd. And the title of this morning's reflection is fashioned as a question. Shall we save or shall we savor the world in which we live? It's not a trick question really, but it's not a genuine question either. It's a koan of a question. It's a coincidence of opposites. To save something is to rescue it from threat or harm or danger. On the other hand, to savor something is to taste it deeply to the ends of dwelling in the enjoyment of it. I love that I could read a dictionary that asked me to dwell in the enjoyment of it. Thank you, Noah Webster. Two different experiences that coincide within us every now and again. What a tension this creates. How do we make sense of such a thing? There's a A Zen story about a man and the tigers and mice. Do you know this story? Perhaps you might have heard of it. A man walks across an open field and he sees a tiger in the distance. He's filled with fear and he runs, but the tiger follows him, and the man reaches the edge of a cliff and felt that he might be trapped when he spotted a vine that was growing over the edge of the cliff. So he grabbed hold of it and he swung himself over the edge, hoping that this would mean safety for him. Now, the tiger, who was chasing him, came to the edge and snarled at him from above. And while the man was hanging there, he saw another tiger approaching from below. Suspended there in between him, he thought to himself, how could this get any worse? And then these two mice just sort of scampered out and started gnawing on the vine. And then that was his mode of temporary salvation. They chewed and chewed as the man pondered his fate. He noticed there was a juicy strawberry on the ledge growing right before him. So he held the vine with one hand and he plucked the strawberry with the other. Ah, how sweet it tasted. End of story. Two things were coinciding. The man was called to save and to savor life. What a tension this coincidence creates. Let us not choose between them, though. Choose between whether to save or to savor life. Let us come let's let them both into our lives. Let's welcome them both. Welcome to the soft-spoken and to the seekers of spirit, to the outspoken and to the singers of life, masked and safely distanced in this time that is driving us crazy. Sorry, little Lizzie, it really is about. Welcome to the wanderers and to the worshipers, to the darkness and to the light. Welcome for all of us who are beneath the lucky stars of heaven, given in care and compassion for one another, soul level deep. In good times and in tempests, in conflict and in consensus, we are held whole and honored by a love that knows no bounds to all souls. I say good morning, it is good to be together. What if it were a real question? Shall we save or shall we savor the world? Heaven only knows how we would answer. I suppose the cheeky way to answer is to say yes. To forfeit the question and just answer. To say yes because the choice is an impossible one to make. Only in hell are we made to choose between things that require one another. We cannot be asked to choose between things like life and love and mystery and passion and beauty and vitality. We need them all. And when we have what we need, we must truly be in heaven, if we believe in heaven, I suppose. Not everybody does. Among those who do believe, there is a tremendous range of variation. Where do you fall along the spectrum of belief? How is it that you believe in heaven, if you do? Or is it that you don't? Now, I asked Joan Columbus the other day, and I got a spirited response. As you may know, Joan is a member of our congregation here at North Chapel, as in the process of moving to Mexico. Joan is a wonderful artist, a talented painter, and a spectacular liver of life. I asked her what she thought of heaven, and she told me, but I'm not going to tell you what she said, because she can do so herself. I checked in with her, and I asked her to prepare a couple of minutes. Could you come up and join me? I asked her to take a couple of minutes and to share with you what she might say. Now, I don't know what's about to happen, so safety belts.
Well, I'm supposed to talk about it. Oh boy. When he asked me if I believed in heaven, I laughed for about 5 minutes. And then I said, describe heaven, please. Because frankly, I haven't any idea what that looks like, except for the experience of things being rich and beautiful and enlivening here on earth, in our lives, in our interactions with one another. That's all the reference I could possibly have. Intellectually, I said, well, we just go back into the quantum soup and then we are not differentiated, so who knows? That doesn't answer anything either. I don't have any answers. I'm a little daunted standing up here. Life is teaching me a lot of lessons, and one of them is how bad I am at communicating my real feelings sometimes, because this morning I greeted someone with, "You're late," when really what I meant was, "I've been waiting for you and I'm so happy you're here." What a difference. Maybe if I live long enough, I'll learn how to say what's my real truth instead of my protection from being seen. And standing up here is very frightening because I feel exposed, and I never like that very much. So I'm going to Mexico, and that was a moment of clarity and light which I get from time to time that tells me to do something, and I wouldn't dare not do that, whatever that is, when it comes on that light. And it said, "Move back." And I was like, oh, okay. And it wasn't my intention when I went down there, but it was my intention when I came back. And it's the rightest possible decision I could make. It is a benefit for my daughters who are trying to figure out what to do with me when they're drowning in their own lives up to their ears with responsibilities, and the last thing they need is me. And the last thing I need is being in that position. So I'm getting to go home to Mexico that I love and be in a framework that I can feel expanded and invited to joy and exploration of new interests and life while I'm still standing. And I have no idea how long I'm going to be here on this earth, but while I am, I feel compelled to enjoy it because it's a gift I've been given, so we all have. And I'm trying my best to figure out what that means because I haven't a clue. So that's all I have to say.
The part about our exchange that I loved the most was when we were talking about how to have the courage to follow the still small, the tiny little impulse that tells you what to do. I spent some time reflecting on what song that you bring up in me, so I had to be quiet for a moment. And what came up was an Ellington song that Ella Fitzgerald would sing called "Love You Madly." Do you know that song? It goes on. I'm not going to sing it, but why not? The words are these: "Love you madly, right or wrong. Sounds like the lyric of a song, and since that's so, I thought you ought to know that I love you madly. Better fish are in the sea is not the theory for me. And that's for sure, and like I said before, I love you madly. If you could see the happy you and me I dream about so proudly, you'd know the breath of spring that makes me sing my love songs so loudly. Good things come to those who wait, so just relax and wait for fate to let me see the day you'll say to me, I love you madly. If you hear the song, the spirit will convey the feeling that comes up when I get to the chance to see you. Enjoy your travels and come back and visit. I will miss you. Against the sea of troubles and in the presence of a joyful love, we find ways of saving and ways of savoring the sacred lives that we lead. I love the story about the man and the tiger and the gnawing mice and the strawberry, but there's another story that I truly love. It's about a little girl artist, and you might find it inspiring. She's a precious girl who you might know and love and even recognize. There was a girl in elementary school who was working madly on an art project in class one spring afternoon in the month of May. And the little girl was passionate about what she was working on, and so a pile of crayons and pastels and colored pencils was gathering where she sat. She needed to use each one. The pile was mounting all around her, forming sort of a fence line of a sort. A bunker of artistry in bud, a beacon of beauty becoming. She was really into her project. It was as if each texture, each color, each contour had something really important to say. And the little girl was the artist in the middle of all of this creativity, creating without pretense, without the barest hesitation. The little girl was in the zone, as they say. That's right. She and her teacher soon took notice, and not wanting to disturb the process, the teacher strolled casually around the room as their time together was nearing its end. She encouraged her students to finish up what they could before the art time was over, and everyone heard and listened, even the little girl, even though she continued disappearing behind an ever-increasing fence line of art supplies. As the other kids were cleaning up and putting things away, this little girl increased her efforts. She doubled down, not knowing that her goal was near at hand. And so this fence line, this bunker of artistry, this beacon of beauty becoming, this mountain of crayons and pastels and pencils all around her just kept growing. It was a marvelous thing to see passion like this in a little kid. It lent to the room an air of extra loveliness and light. The teacher, who was softly, slowly approaching the little girl from behind, was finally close enough to peer over her shoulder and see the image that she was so fervently drawing. Brilliant, brazen, bold, breathtaking, abundant, brave, beholden. The teacher could see that these qualities were clear, but she could not see the image itself. It was amorphous, ambiguous. It was mysterious to the eye, but nevertheless, something jumped within her heart. Something leapt within her. It was inspired by what she saw. The teacher saw only the suggestion of an image. She saw only the hint of something that was trying to emerge from the colorful madness. And then the teacher said, "What are you working on, my dear? What have you been working on so fervently?" And the little girl said something marvelous. She said, "I'm trying to draw a picture of God." It was stunning. She answered the question without irony. She was so matter-of-fact about it that it seemed contrary to her own creative passion. They say that opposites attract. And in this moment, it was clear that they do, because these opposites coincided within this one passionate little girl. Without pretense, passion, or prejudice, this little girl said that she was drawing a picture of the holy. Through her art project, she called out the name of her God. She said so herself. It was astonishing, sometimes what comes out of the mouths of babes. So the teacher was surprised. She was taken aback a little bit, but she gathered herself quickly enough. The teacher said, as gently as she could, "You know, drawing or painting or sculpting the image of God is a tall order for any artist. It was challenging for the best of us, for Masaccio and Blake and Titus. It was hard for Michelangelo." And the little girl just kept drawing. The teacher was trying to talk her down a little bit, but the little girl resisted. The teacher tried again, so very cautiously. She said, "You know, no one really knows what God looks like anyway." And those words made the girl chuckle to herself. She responded to the art teacher without missing a beat. She said, "Don't worry, they'll know in a minute." I'm almost done with my work of art. That little girl was really just like heaven here on earth. That little girl was just like you and just like me. It was Cornel West who often called occasions like this the expression of radical Christianity. Explaining this concept, he would say that the kingdom of God is within you and is everywhere around you, and everywhere you go, you carry a little piece of heaven. It seems like that would be a helpful thing to know as we save and as we savor this world. I find this idea reassuring. I don't think of myself as a radical Christian, but I'm rather fond of Cornel West. I like what he's saying. I like the idea that there is something special inside of me, something special inside us all, something sacred. I spent most of my youth believing that we had to die to go to heaven. I thought of heaven as a place to go when life was over, where most of us go, if we've been good enough, and if our applications are reviewed in a timely manner and accepted by appropriate committees. I grew up thinking of heaven that way, even though I was raised Unitarian Universalist. I had a gnawing anxiety that maybe for some reason I would not get in. And if I did get in, it might be by the skin of my teeth, which means that most of my friends would not. That's how fear distorted my sense of the holy when I was younger. When I was in elementary school, I was precocious, not unlike the little girl in art class. And if you were like me, you might have been precocious as well. When I was in middle school, I entered a phase in which I was more anxious and more afraid. I feared that I might lose something that was dear to me. And of course I did. I did lose something. I lost many things that were dear to me, and I survived somehow, just like everyone else I knew. I can't quite say that I overcame my fear, but I came to understand it differently. Not all of us choose this path, but I did. My fear and my anxiety came to have less power in my life. They softened into grace somehow. And if you're like me, yours did too. There is some suffering on this path of growth and change. It isn't easy. It's arduous, in fact. The challenge that growth imposes can be daunting. It can make stagnancy or even regression seem more appealing. And we're seeing this now, this regression, with respect to our attention to the needs of our planet from a climate perspective, with respect to war in Afghanistan and in Yemen, in Syria and in Ukraine, with respect to domestic terrorism in houses of worship and in grocery stores, in American cities like Charleston, El Paso, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo, New York. Growth is very hard. It's challenging against a sea of troubles, yet this challenge provides a paradox, a contradiction that gives us energy. Against a sea of troubles and in the presence of a joyful love, we find ways of saving and we find ways of savoring the world in which we live. To do this, we might have to let go of the past a little bit. Life is different for us now. It will be different for us moving forward. Sometimes it will and sometimes it won't be easy for us to deal with these changes. As much as it would be nice to get back to normal as soon as possible, we are already different than we were before. We will get back to normal at some point, but we will be different when we return. We are already different. Devastatingly, 1 million of us are gone. And we really don't know how to deal with that. A good way to deal with this will emerge over time, but right now it's too soon to tell. This is a shattering time, and we are, all of us, deeply in the throes of it. There is a poem about secret lovers in Paris that speaks of devastating losses of the heart. Looking back anxiously on their private encounters, the poet asks, did we say too much? Did we say too little, stepping over every dark thing? It's possible for lovers. It's possible to step over the dark things when they happen on a personal level, We call friends for comfort. We ask elders for guidance. We seek wisdom from teachers. We heal ourselves, and we take the time we need for our recoveries. Deeper in the poem, it gets harder. We get into the entanglements and the contradictions. The poet writes, "Framing his face with my hands in the doorway, I try to decipher the friend from the foe in his eyes. Did he hear too much? Say too little? Could any year recover what we've lost in these?" There's a question for us to consider as we imagine getting back to normal. Can any year recover what we've lost in these? The poet doesn't answer the question. She continues on defiantly. She writes, "I walk with my head held high and naked in the sun, claiming these streets for myself. I walk with my head held high and naked in the sun, claiming these streets for myself." Paris. Getting through great challenges is so much harder when it's less personal, less secretive, less private, less subject to our powers of denial. When challenges are private, one can savor the strawberry in the midst of great harm and threat and danger. When the challenges are public, though, the savoring happens against a din of anxiety, finding power enough to savor life when life is hard. When we are in the throes of saving life, it's hard to find the power and the integrity and the spaciousness to savor life when we are afraid. What tension this creates within us, for we are forced to make a choice that is impossible, and this is the hell of it. We do not always choose to hold things in balance. When we don't, we fray along the edges and we fight and things break down. When we are walking with our heads held high, claiming these streets for ourselves, we fight when we all imagine ourselves to be the leading player in the poem, rather than every player in the poem. We fight when we imagine that we are all the heroine walking the streets of Paris, but with no man, no lover, no enemy, no other to reduce and antagonize. We have to deal with problems on a deeper level. We fight when we have no moral of the story to exclusively possess and be right about. These are confusing times. And yet it is still possible to meet life's challenges together as one. It's just that we haven't done it this way before. We don't have a practice of doing it. We don't have the muscle. We don't have the habit. We don't have the training. There is no common method, no regular way. And this nearly pathless journey that we've undertaken these last few years, there are few signposts, so few signposts guiding us. And so it's hard to find our way. It's frustrating. We work hard to gain an answer, a place to rest the soul, but we are easier to anger and harder to console. Savor the strawberry. Savor life. Savor the whole wide world. We can save it a whole lot better with love than we can with anxiety. Dr. West said, "The kingdom of God is within you and is everywhere around you, and everywhere you go, you carry a little piece of heaven." We carry this heaven with us. It resides in the sweetness of the strawberry. We carry it within us. It resides in the precociousness of the creative young artist. So what do you think? Do you believe in heaven? Do you take responsibility for the little piece of the sacred that is within you? May we savor that piece of heaven that is within us all, and through our love, save our lives for creativity and joy. And may we save that piece of heaven that is within us all, and through our life, save love and strawberries. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.